If you bought a condo in Ventura County recently, it might be worth less than what you paid. Condos here are sitting on the market almost 50 days now, while single-family homes are still moving much quicker. But the real problem isn't the market. It's the HOA. Special assessment, rental caps, and rising insurance costs can turn your equity into a money pit overnight. At the end of this video, I'm going to go over my top 7-step checklist to make every condo purchase seamless and avoid all the traps. But first, let's quickly break down the current triple threat that's creating financial nightmares for everybody. When you buy a condo in California, you're not just buying a unit. You're buying into a shared balance sheet with every other owner in the building. The Davis-Stirling Act governs these common interest developments, and it means the HOA is responsible for the roofs, the external walls, elevators, balconies, and all the shared stuff that keeps the place standing. Every major component outside the interior walls becomes a financial obligation split amongst every single owner. That means your finances are tied to decisions made by a board you probably didn't vote for. And if they've kept dues artificially low to keep people happy, the reserves are probably drying up. And when the big repairs show up, you don't get to opt out. I've seen associations where the percentage funded score sat below 30%, meaning that they had less than a third of what they needed to have saved, and that's a huge red flag and a special assessment waiting to happen. That's a triple threat facing a lot of condo owners in Ventura County right now. You can't sell at the price that you make sense, you can't rent to cover your costs, and you can't absorb the fees without draining your savings account. So that leads me right into the sell side because that's where most people feel the pain first. All right, let's look at the numbers here in Ventura County. The median condo price is sitting around $586,000, while a single-family home is going upwards of $1 million. That gap alone tells you where the demand is. Condos are averaging about 49 days on the market, up from 26 just earlier this year. 36% of these listings have already had price cuts, and the 69% of the homes countywide are selling below asking. Out in Oxnard and Camarillo, condos and townhomes are sitting, and that slower pace is something buyers can just feel. Now, I know the numbers feel abstract, so let's put it in a simple way. If you bought a condo in Ventura or Thousand Oaks 2 years ago and you were thinking about flipping it into something bigger in just 3 years, you're probably going to need a plan B. When a condo sits for 2 or 3 weeks or months on the market, buyers start wondering not about the price, but what is wrong with it. And you end up cutting the price just to get out. So if you need to sell fast based on a job change or a family situation, you're looking at a thinner market with fewer buyers and more competition. That's the can't sell problem, and that's happening right now. If you can't sell, a lot of owners think, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to rent it and cover the mortgage. But here's the thing. AB 3182 banned outright rental prohibitions back in 2021. But that sounds great. However, it preserved rental caps. And most associations limit rentals to the around 25% of the total units in the buildings. Once the cap is full, you're just on a waiting list and you're trying to time your life to an opening that is nearly impossible to predict. I've seen owners wait 2 years for just one single spot. Even when you do rent, the math rarely works. Rent gets set by the market, not what you paid for the unit, not what your mortgage is, and not what your HOA fee is, especially those combined. And those compared to a realistic rent in Ventura and Oxnard, that is rarely a gap that you want to absorb. Whether it's $100 or $500, you're covering that every single month, which means you're basically paying for somebody to live in your home. And that's not the safety net that people think it is. And that leads me right into the worst part. The money bleed that happens when you try to keep pace. Speaking of an HOA fee, let's talk about why those dues don't stay flat. Insurance Landscaping, maintenance, and building compliance all cost money, and if they're not accounted for ahead of time, it creates a huge problem. I've watched dues jump because of a community finally had to fess up to the reality after years of keeping all their dues artificially low. If rising fees aren't enough, here's where special assessments come in. That's the extra bill when a major expense outruns the reserves. New roofs, structural repairs, retaining walls, balcony work are mandated by SB 326. California law says assessments generally cannot exceed 5% of the association's budget without member approval. However, emergency expectations exist for immediate safety threats, and the board can also seek approval for big jobs when reserves just fall short. This is where the percent fund score matters. State law requires the reserve study every 3 years, and the score below 30 signals a high risk. It can also flag the building for non-warrantable from Fannie Mae financing, which means future buyers can't get a conventional loan there. That makes it even harder for you to sell. On top of that, California HOA insurance crisis is running straight into 2026. Rising premiums as of October of 2026 are going to be on average about 29.1%. Wildfire zones, non-renewable out toward Ojai and the hillside communities near Camarillo and the associations getting forced into the FAIR plan are all pushing costs onto the owners. Some master policies have doubled or tripled in the last few years. You're not just fighting the market, you're fighting the system that shifts cost straight to you when the association runs out of money. None of these mean that you need to avoid condos entirely. It just means you need to come into the whole situation with your eyes wide open. And right now, buyers actually have leverage because inventory keeps climbing, the days on the market keep stretching, and if you have done your homework, you can find a great deal. All right, let's get into my condo trap avoidance checklist, or CTAC. Number 1 on the list is check the HOA reserves and budget. Look at the percent funded score, not just the monthly fees. Anything below 30% is a huge red flag, and it means you have a special assessment coming right down the way, even if you don't know it. Number 2, have your agent request the board meetings for the last 6 months. Minutes are a written record of what the board has been discussing and voted on, and they tell you what's coming before anybody knows it outright. Number 3, check the rental restrictions and caps. Even if you're not intending on renting today, you need to know what your options are in the future. Number 4, ask how often fees have increased and why. 3 or 4 increases in the last 3 or 4 years is a warning sign. Not catastrophic, but it definitely is something to keep an eye on. Number 5, plan to stay in the property at least 5 to 7 years. Early in the mortgage, you're not building much equity through the payments alone, so fast moves can be a real downside to your equity. Number 6, check the delinquency rate. A high number of owners behind on the dues means the rest of the community is quietly covering the gap. And number 7, find out how responsive the management company is and whether repairs get handled quickly. The conversation tells you things that no document will. Condos aren't broken, they're just something you need to come into with your eyes wide open and find that good deal. So if you're looking for some more tips on how to buy smart and avoid traps, go ahead and subscribe. California just passed new HOA laws in 2026, and we'll be covering those soon. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.